literally hit it, but let's go.
Let's go. We're here. I was hitting it. I was still on last week's baseball theme.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're live. We're raw again.
Yeah, here we go. Another day. And do we have a powerful topic today, Jeff?
We do. It's always like Gartner puts out some really good stuff, but
Always have.
You and I always love the annual spend report, the CMO Spend Report, which just came out yesterday. There's some good nuggets in there.
And one of the nuggets that we found most interesting was how all you marketers out there, while you're spending money on AI, you're not even close to being ready for it.
No, but I mean, of course, the headline, 70% of marketers want to be leaders in AI. So good for you. I don't know where the other 30% are, what y'all are doing, but okay.
Head in the sand. That is totally a head in the sand kind of marketer.
I'm sitting there thinking, okay, but isn't that the easy part? Like, don't we all want to lead in whatever's next? We wanted to lead in ABM. We wanted to lead in demand gen. We wanted to lead in the customer experience. We wanted to lead, right? So I don't think you're going to see a lot of bold CMOs say, no, I don't want to lead. But saying that you want to lead and doing it are two different things.
And Jeff, I'm going to say that while this conversation could go two ways. We could just wail on how pathetic marketing leadership is, which is not true, but we could wail on it, right?
We could.
Or we could talk about really the more organizational barriers that are in the way, because this really is an organizational shift. And so we'll probably talk about both of those.
Right? It's a lot of the building blocks, and a lot of times, like, companies operate the way they were designed to operate.
It's funny how that happens, isn't it?
Yeah, but people
you build it and they work that way, right?
Remember who was that guy that we had years ago?
I remember exactly who you're talking. He talked about the ruts in the road and how
the ruts in the road and the loops going down. Create, and yeah, it was Bill, right? We did like a management retreat, and
we did.
It was really, but it was, even though we knew better,
it made us question our ruts in the road. First of all, because we identified what they were, we're like, okay, well, I just didn't realize that was that big of a rut, right? And then it helps you think about other paths you might take.
We're creatures of habit, creatures of routine. There's reasons why change is hard at an institutional level, right? It's not that people don't want to change. It's, you just have this whole legacy of
organization. It just gets in the way.
It really does.
It's a big, very, very, very powerful thing. It's like we had to have the electricity at our boat dock turned off because we're doing some construction on the house. So we had our boat in the water for a few days, and of course we had it moored off, right? Well, honey, one of those pilings just got ripped right out of the ground because that's the power of water. And organizations, they are the same way. That organizational culture, those organizational ruts, they are very, very strong.
Except it's not a fast moving stream. It's this big ass moat, that stagnant water.
But you know what, Jeff, as we continue down the path in the AI world, I read an article yesterday that was using end of the world language almost to describe what was going to be happening to SaaS businesses and to, organizations. And I think that one of the things that the Gartner report is calling out is we're acting the same way we've always acted, which you just described. Let's go get it. Let's be a leader, but not taking a minute to say, what the hell does that actually mean?
What does it mean? Like, what does leading in AI mean exactly?
Yeah.
Because does that mean you're going to be the most efficient? Does that mean that you are going to design new products and services? Like, what you've got to clarify. Are you going to transform your customer experience? Like, what is it exactly?
Here's what I think about AI. I think this is a chance for marketing leadership, another chance for marketing leadership to step back and say, honey, how can I make this work like nothing has ever worked before? Because the repercussions and change are so great here. So if they would just take a minute to step back and say, how is this different? And what do I need to do to really make this work? And, a big part of the report was about, how ready is an organization for AI? And for example, one of the things that they talked about that you've got to have a foundation for is data. Jeff, have we ever met a single marketing organization that had their data handled in any way? I mean, I think the best I would ever give an organization that we've ever met since 2007, since 2004, would probably be a B, right? So if part of AI readiness is having that data foundation, who do you know that's focusing on a data foundation in marketing right now?
Almost none. I mean, people will say it's important. Like people can spout off the phrases like it's a bumper sticker, or a billboard. Like, okay, here's the best practice. But are you actually doing it? Look, data's not sexy. It's the plumbing. It's the grind. But you want to lead in AI. How do you lead in systems that are built on bad data? So you want to lead.
That's right.
In crap, basically.
I think the very first time you and I ever met a marketing operations organization, it was with a basketball, an NBA team.
Yes.
That we were working with, and this was way back in the day, and they had their data locked and loaded. They knew the data was everything to them. And ever since then, you and I, especially as systems became more sophisticated for marketers, has always been like, why aren't we spending more money on data? Why aren't we spending more time on data? Yes, it is not sexy, but it is the number one thing that will predict failure of a marketing organization in an AI world if they don't put in place that data foundation.
Yeah, and I think instead of looking at data as this ugly tactical problem, if you truly want to lead in AI, why don't you start by asking the questions that then having good data will solve, right? So like flip the order. Hey, wouldn't it be great if we knew this? If we had this, what could we do? What insight are we missing? What intelligence would make us more
great
approach? Right?
What a great approach. I mean, marketers have been drowning in data forever. And
we have a ton in B2B, yeah. We have all these systems.
Yeah, all these systems and all this data. So let's talk about how, yes, it's not sexy. And if I were a CMO leading today, I'd be raising hell with my leadership team to get a lot of money to fix my data. That would be my number one thing. I'd be looking them in the eye and say, look, ladies and gentlemen, I can't do this shit with AI if I don't have a good data foundation. So let's pony up the money.
But you know what, Deb? They have the money already. Like what the Gartner report said already, they're spending 15% of their budget on AI.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that they're spending to on the
No, I know, but my point here is it's so sure, go out and buy the tools. Go out and buy the widgets because that's what marketers always do.
But you know what this has to do with? This has to do with a lot of times marketing leadership has too many competing priorities. And number two, they just don't know how to say no. They don't know how to.
But I mean, I'm going back to you. But do they need more budget to fix their data? Well, do they need more data, or do they need to reallocate what they're already spending better? Like, so do they need to jump from 0 to 15% of their budget on AI versus go to 5% on AI and 10% on data or whatever it is, to
answer that question, I think you would need to answer the next big gap that you need in AI readiness, which is process maturity, right?
Yes.
Because, because that process maturity answers the question that you just asked. What AI do we need and how would we be using it? Yet, I would say you've got to have a data foundation that works regardless, right? Regardless.
No argument. And you could even argue then, starting with the process, what is the workflow? Because that's really before you can start leading in AI, it's about really optimizing your engine, right? Which is a bunch of processes and data. So like, how does your marketing team run? And I don't think leaders stop long enough to think about the hundreds, if not thousands of processes that are running across their departments, each day. What if you just sat down with your team for a couple of days and said, let's just document a day in life. Like, what do we do? You have way more processes than you think you have. It's easy to think about the big ones like, campaign brief and lead scoring and stuff like that, but there's a ton.
I mean, even the customer journey is a process, right?
Sure.
And so I think that's why this process maturity idea is so important. And you even mentioned it earlier, instead of just jumping in to say, let's fix the data, let's talk about what data do we have and what could we find and what might we do with it? What kind of impact would it make on our business? So I think you're right. And we've talked about this before, reimagining how the work of marketing gets done, right? Is part of that process maturity. And
we've been,
it will take somebody from this. I don't personally believe that marketers can do this by themselves. I personally believe they need to bring somebody in to help them do those kinds of things, because it is just a totally different skill set. But what a great way to begin thinking about, how does marketing need to be working differently? What do we need? What can we get? And then how can the data support that?
Yeah, let's bring this back to the revenue marketing journey, which we've been doing now for 16 years. And we just put out.
I thought it was like 85 years, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, it feels like it.
Did we establish this in 1903 or something?
That's right. Just, right then. Well, we just ran the Revenue Marketing Index, our annual report last year, and we found that after all these years later, only 16% of companies are in revenue marketing, which is the repeatable, predictable, and scalable stage. So that means, basically 76% of marketers are in those first three phases. I'm saying that because to lead an AI, you have to have a repeatable, predictable process for it to automate and scale. So if you're not even at that maturity yet, you can't just start buying. Well, they are buying the tools, but they're going to miss the mark because their processes are going to be lagging behind.
That's right.
The ability of AI to actually automate and execute on it.
Yeah. And you and I have always been process first. I mean, how many times, even when we come to put in a system, well, you don't just cram it in, what do you want it to do? How do you want it to work? Let's think about the end result we're trying to get, and then the processes that support that. And then we can configure the technology this way, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
you
marketers
guys are the process people. Damn straight. Yes, we
damn
are.
Straight. Damn straight. Damn straight. That's right. And it's, and I see you maybe missed what I was going to say next, but we've always been process forward. And again, I do not believe that a marketing organization can come in, reimagine marketing for a new world of AI, and become process mature without outside help. It's just a totally different game. And then I also think, because I was thinking about this before, and guys, we come up with these topics like 3 minutes before we get on air. I swear to God, we're back and forth. We're talking about. So this is not like we got a plan, we got topics. It's just like, whatever we feel is relevant for that week. And so just the immediacy of how this has to happen, and how it's already happening, and how, we need to see some new roles on the team. I think you definitely need data scientists. You have to have access to a really deep data capability, or have your own data capability. One of those two things absolutely has to happen. And really that sits squarely within marketing ops. And too often we see that marketing ops they're the technology people, but they don't spend as much time on data as they could and they should, for all kinds of reasons. But that's just
you're absolutely right. And I think, and then we also have to recognize the context of which CMOs and leaders are operating right now. I mean, it has been a pressure cooker for marketers for quite some time now, especially ever since they started being held accountable for revenue. But these last 3 to 4 years have just ratcheted up. And so now you're getting boards and CFOs and CEOs telling leaders, look, you got to cut your costs, by 12 to 25%, 50%. And careers are being threatened. You can't hire kids out of school anymore. You're missing your inbound farming system.
Yeah.
The ground is literally evaporating beneath your feet. So that's why I think, you're like, well, how do I lead in this environment? How do I lead when I have
what I want to do, Jeff? I just want to gather up all these CMOs and just bring them together and just give them a big hug and then say, you know, guys, ladies and gentlemen, there's a new way to take a look at this, right? And it really does begin with understanding that there's a new way that marketing works in the world of AI. And how do you reinvent that? What are the core processes? And then the data foundation that you need to have put into place. I mean, when we say it, it sounds so, of course,
But there's opportunities too. I don't want to mention her name to protect her privacy, but I was telling you, like, one of our long-term customers and friends called me up yesterday. And part of what she was sharing is, you know, they just lost their key sales leader. And she was just asking for advice on how they could accelerate their AI usage within the marketing department. And I actually said, why don't you think about taking over that job too?
Exactly.
Because why, if marketing is under pressure because of all the inefficiencies, you don't think sales has inefficiencies in its department? Do we need all these reps not meeting quota? Do we need all these annual sales kickoffs and demo certifications when AI is going to be doing all this shit anyway? I mean, I'm not saying that we don't need people to manage relationships. You know, I'm not saying that we don't need a sales function, but do we need it the way it is? The same way do we need marketing the way it is?
Yeah.
So I think there are opportunities for CMOs to reimagine what it means to be a CMO. And you and I've talked about this before. Maybe that's not even the right title.
Maybe it's not even the right title. I truly think that in the next 5 years, titles are going to be gone, and we're going to see extraordinarily different roles between marketing and sales.
I mean, it really is. Look, even nonprofits have to grow, right? So being a growth officer, being growth minded, whatever you want to call it, maybe it is chief growth officer, maybe to your point, it's just a blank skate. Maybe it's just an etch a sketch, you know, just show up each day to work and you can wear a different hat.
What are you going to do? 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 Right?
What have you done for me lately? You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
We're in a time that even with all the stuff we've been through, this is unprecedented. It's moving at a speed and a force that even for the most technically savvy, the most risk-oriented people among us, it can take your breath away. But you know, it's also a great opportunity.
It's so much fun. Oh my gosh.
But you opened up this call, I think, articulating the problem. You can't solve tomorrow's challenges with yesterday's answers, right? So like if you
or even with today's, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you can't. I mean, what's the definition of crazy, right? Trying to do the same thing over and over. Yeah, exactly.
So you got to try something different. You got to move outside your comfort zone, because if you don't, you're going to get your ass moved anyway. Because it's just moving.
Yeah, and we often talk about change management in organizations, and we've done quite a bit of change management with companies through the years, because bringing in a new piece of technology, new processes, new job roles, you know, all of those kinds of things. I think it's one of the most important elements for companies to be. It needs to be very, very, very top of mind. And then the other thing with this is also the talent. I think on our last show, we made a big point of talking about how the execution layer is going to be taken over by AI. So marketing is no longer an execution. You know, you don't need execution people. So, you know, what is that next set of talent? So you've got, you know, got to have the right processes in place for the new work of marketing. You've got to have the data foundation, and then you have to have the talent that comes along with that. And this is just going to be a brand new set of talent. For example, one talent I truly believe is that there needs to be heavy duty data people on the marketing ops teams that can make sure that the data is clean, the data is right, they have access to the data, and that they can use it. And again, with AI, oh my God, it's just a whole bunch of agents crawling all over everything in the company to bring forward what needs to be brought forward in that second, right? So I just think that talent's also going to be a big issue, and it's talent all across the team, including,
and it already is, you know,
including what is the role of the CMO in the AI world, right? What does that role look like? How does that change? Even at a manager level, Jeff. I mean, if you're a manager and you are accustomed to managing a whole bunch of execution people, you're not managing really execution anymore, right? So how are these roles going to evolve in the world of AI? What is that talent that's needed?
And I think I keep going back to that human plus AI equation. So, AI has been around for a long time, right? And it's now a well-known story, like back in what, 89, AI beat like the world's grandmaster in chess for the first time. And then ever since then, no humans ever been able to beat a computer. But a few years ago, they changed the tournaments, right? Now it's grandmaster plus AI against grandmaster plus AI. And what they started finding is together, they were coming up with moves and strategies never before thought of.
So 1 + 1 was 3.
Yeah, by human or by machine. So they
Mhm.
were playing three-dimensional chess, in
That
a
is
way.
so
And
interesting.
so I think that's what we're talking about here, Deb. I think you got to get past the stuff that AI is going to take over, and you have to move towards what can we build together.
Exactly.
Us,
What is the positive side? Like
we're
stop.
essentially raising our IQ level from what 100 basis points up to 400 or 500. Like
And
we should be able to operate at a
right.
genius level.
And the human becomes more important than ever before in the work world. We're no longer the Henry Ford. It's a manufacturing facility, and you take all those jobs. Really, it's just the opposite. That the person, the human, becomes that much more important. And I want to make 2 more comments about this. So. In the Gartner report, they talked about, AI maturity for data foundations, process maturity, governance. Oh, they all suck at that. Talent. But I also want to add mindset and identity.
Mm-hmm.
How does the mindset of the marketing organization change in the world of AI? And how does the identity of marketing change in the age of AI? And I think that is where the first work needs to be done, with some really good visioning exercises of what could be.
We are, by nature as humans, tribal. Whether it's our church or synagogue, our tennis league, our mahjong tournament. Like we have groups we identify by the people that we congregate with, our friends, the things that we do, and we have our careers and we have the
Mhm.
roles that define us. So, if the very fabric of what we know to be is eroding, we need a new identity. You're
We do.
absolutely right.
We
And
do.
what does
We
that
need
look like?
identity.
And I think it's an existential um, imperative for us to understand what that is, because
I think it is. I
otherwise,
I
like,
think
if
we
you are
are.
devoutly spiritual, you need meaning in your life.
You do. You do. You absolutely, totally need meaning in your life. And but the mindset, the identity, and because a lot of people, their work is such a big part of who they are, whether it's because of the creativity they bring, or whatever. But it's not just show up and drudgery. It really is a big part of their role, of their identity. So it's the identity of the people, and also the identity of the marketing group, and also quite frankly of the organization. So anyway, we just thought that was a great report from Gardner. It just had some really key highlights, and you were going to continue to see this kind of conversation everywhere you go, because this is real. This is happening right now, and you need to get a handle on it.
Amen. All right. Well, until more AI stuff next week, we're going to still be raw as always.
I'm Debbie.
I'm Jeff, and we're
See you
raw.
guys next time.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Bye, everybody.